Hi everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and take a look at this quilt behind me. Isn't this adorable? This quilt is called You Gnome, I Love You, and if you know me at all, you know I love gnomes. And so this is a pattern by Hello Melly Designs, and with her permission we are doing this tutorial, and I am so excited about it. Now it's pretty easy, but a little bit smaller pieces than we're used to, but let's look at this closely. So it has this heart block right here in between, and then the heart is repeated for the gnome's beard. And so once you get that heart, you're pretty good on the block. So we're gonna start with this. Now the difference between her pattern is all set up for fabric, and so it will tell you just what to cut and where to go. It even gives you these cool letters to put on your fabric so that as you stack your piles up, you know exactly what piece goes where. A lot of patterns are written that way. I wanted to do it with a layer cake because that's what I do. And so let me show you. This is my professional cardboard off the back of the layer cake right here. We made a little cutting chart here, and this is how you get your gnome out of a layer cake. And then also this is how you get your hearts out of the layer cake. It's quick and easy, and I generally do cut 2 gnomes out at a time so that I can swap their hat and their body out, you know. So this guy has the flowered hat with the red body, and then here's the red hat with the flowered body down here. So I just switched them. I did them 2 at a time, so it makes it really easy. So to make this quilt, you're going to need one pattern, You Gnome I Love You by Hello Melly Designs. To make my version, you're going to need 1 packet of 10-inch squares, and we have used Ava Kate by Karina Gardner for Riley Blake. You're going to need 3.5 yards of background fabric, and that includes our first inner border. And for your outer border, you're going to need 1.25 yards, and for the backing, you're going to need 4.5 yards of 45-inch wide fabric or 2 yards of a 108. So we're going to start with the heart block right now, and on the heart block, what we're going to do is I went through this pack. The pack we used was Ava Kate, and it's got beautiful colors in it. It's got the blues, and it's got some lights, some peaches, it's reds, and darks. I wanted all of my hearts to kind of step back. So I went and pulled all the light pinks out of my pack so that I could make the heart, and I also pulled 1 pink out for the nose of the gnome. So you might do that as well. So let's go ahead and pull one of these out, and I'll show you how we make a heart, because once you can make the heart, you can make the beard. All right, so we are going to cut this, and we're going to cut it in half like this. First, right in half. And then each heart piece is 3 by 5. So then we're going to come along here and we're going to cut 3 inches in. And I am right here, I'm ignoring these peaks. So I'm right to the inside of the peak on that. And we're going to cut 1, and this will make 1 heart right here. And so you'll get 3 hearts out of this. And so we'll cut again. And then we'll cut 1 more time. These are 3 by 5 again, like this. Alrighty. So to make the heart, what we're going to do is we're going to choose 2 of these pieces, and we've got these little tiny pieces right here. Now, most of you who sew with me are not used to cutting little tiny pieces like this. These are 1 1/4 inch squares, and you're going to need 4 for each heart. So these tiny little pieces right here. Don't worry, it's not harder, it's just smaller. And then we're going to need these 3-inch blocks for the corners. So out of your background fabric, you're going to cut some 3s, you're going to cut some 1.25s. You're also going to have a side piece that is 2 inches right here, like this, just a strip. And then you're going to have a strip that's 2.5 for the top and the bottom. And the reason we put those borders on is because we want this block to match with this block so that it just, when you put it together, you're just sewing rows together. It goes together super easy. All right, so what I'm going to do, and what you can do, is put your square in the corner, top corner of both sides of your 3 by 5 rectangle. And I would suggest drawing the line or using the diagonal seam tape. On a piece this small, the ironing is going to be a little bit harder to control, and so you're going to put a square on each corner, and we are going to sew here and here, just like that on both sides. So let's go ahead and come over here and do that. And I'm just going to start on this side. Make sure it stays lined up right in the corner. Now, one of the things that I noticed when I was sewing mine is that mine didn't turn out perfect, which is par for the course for the way I sew. But it was just it would just be a little bit off so that when you put it in that 1/4 inch seam, you could hide it. And so I didn't worry about it too much. So if you find that yours are coming out a little bit funny, don't worry about it because we're going to border all around that. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to line up our squares right in the corner just like this, and I'm going to turn mine so that this pinked edge isn't at the top, and I'm going to put my squares right like this, and we're going to sew diagonally this way and then this way. So corner to corner on this. You just line that up right there. And you can eyeball it, draw a line, whatever you choose. I'm using the diagonal seam tape. Then I'm going to come down the other side right here, making sure that's still right in the corner. And the top of your heart is done. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to trim off these corners, and I'm just laying my ruler just about a 1/4 inch away, like this. And one more over here. And then we're going to press these open. And I'm just going to fold these back like this. Fold this one back. And then to make the bottom of our heart, we're going to put 2 3-inch background squares on each corner. So these will cover your whole corner like this. And what you're going to want to do is draw this line like this. There we go. And I am just, there's lots of ways to do things, and you could iron these. They're plenty big enough. You can use your diagonal seam tape. And what I'm going to do, so for me, this is a lot of waste of fabric, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew on this line, and then I'm going to come over and I'm going to sew again, and I'm going to cut this apart, and I'm going to save all these little triangles for something special, not sure what, something special. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to sew right on that line. And then I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to sew to the outside of that line, about a 1/2 inch. And then I will cut right in between those two, and then my little extra half square triangle for something special is already made. Now the reason I put the heart together and laid these out like this is they have to be going opposite directions in order to form a heart. And I'll show you what I mean right now. So these are going to come together like this, and see how we're sewing opposite ways on both sides. And now I'm going to trim this. And I'm going to trim this. Oops, I got a little bit. There we go. Hang on, let me cut that little thread right there. That was kind of living dangerously, wasn't it? All right. Then we'll press these out. And I'm rolling it back just like that. And then right here's our little heart, and all we have to do is lay these on top of each other and sew a straight seam down the center. Now one of the things you want to watch is make sure this seam lines up right here as close as you can get it, and then because those are the parts you want to watch for as you're sewing this middle seam together. It's just that those parts and this little point down here kind of line up. All right, we'll press one more time. And then we're ready to put our little borders around it. And so you can see like the edges of mine right here. They're not perfectly in there, but I know that when I put this little border on here, my little side border, they're going to be all hidden in there, so it's not going to be any big deal. Now, what you can do is you can measure this, and this block is 5 inches, and so you can cut your pieces 5 inches if you'd like. I will, a lot of times when I'm working on the whole quilt, what I'll do is I'll just have a strip and I'll do side, and do my chain piecing that way. I'm going to cut 2 5-inch strips for you because we're just doing one block here. Like this. And I'm going to put these on the sides, and that will border the sides of our heart. going to come over here and do this side. Remember, this strip is 2 by 5. And then I'm going to press it again, and then we'll add the top and bottom. Now, if when you're sewing along, you know, this sort of thing starts to bother you, you can just trim that up really easily like this, and just shave off that edge so that it stays even with the top. You know, sometimes when we sew, our fabric distorts a little bit. It's not a big deal. And just like that right there. And then it stays straight. And then for all of you that, you know, that's a thing, you might want to just do that. Take a little time to clean up your block. And then I'm going to trim off these selvages right here. And then I'm going to cut 2 pieces. And these pieces are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5. And so we're going to come over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.5 right here. Cut those, and then these are the borders for the top and the bottom. Right here. Let's see. And we want to keep that pretty close on there. There we go. And then our top, we're going to line up this top edge. Make sure we're lined up over here. There we go. We'll press this out. And that's one of my favorite things in quilting is that every seam is enclosed in another seam, so it just cleans it all up. Isn't that darling? All right, so now we know how to make the heart, and now you know how to make the beard of the gnome. So let me show you how to make the gnome. And I'm going to save these really quick right here. I have a little baggy stash of all my half-square triangles. I just can't let that big of a thing go to waste. So right here is our cutting chart for our gnome, and I'm going to choose 2 colors here. And I think I will go with this blue. And, oh, I have 2 blues here, so I need 2 opposite colors. And maybe this black stripe will be kind of fun. I love a good stripe in a quilt. I think this one I bound it with this little stripe right here. See that little bitty stripe? I love a stripe on the binding. All right, line these up carefully. And I follow my little cutting chart every time. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut this at 4.5 right here. I'm going to cut my piece off at 4.5. And this will make my hat. Like that. Save this piece. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to cut some 1.5 or 1 1/4 inch squares because we have to have the same little tiny squares. And this little piece, I'll get my 1 1/4. There's 1. There's 2. Okay, so you need 2 of these for each block. And then this hat has to be 4.5 by 8.5, and it's just a tad bigger. So we're going to trim this edge down here, just like this. All right, we're going to set these hats aside up here, and this is extra. And then we're going to take this other piece, and we are going to cut 2 3x3s. And this is going to go around the body of the gnome. Again, these are the parts that go to the bottom of the heart that make it look like he's wearing a little coat. So we're going to do, I'm actually going to cut this little tiny pinked edge off here. Come over and make sure this is 3x3. And I'm going to cut 1. And I'm going to cut 2. And then this right here I'm going to set over here. And these I need 2 2x5s. So I'm going to leave this long, all the way long. And I'm just going to trim this. So it's 2 inches. And then we're going to trim it at the 5 line. Right here. And these are his arms. All right. So once you get your pieces cut for your gnome, for the background pieces, you only need 3 cuts, and that is the 2 3x5s. This is the beard. And then you've got your 2 2x2s. Those go on the bottom of the arms of the gnome. And then you're going to need 2 4.5-inch squares for your hat. So let's start with the hat, and let's make this gnome have a nice black hat. And I'm going to go ahead and draw the line on these because it is quite a distance to eyeball. And we're going to make this just like you make a flying geese. And so, you know, super easy. We're going to sew on that line. And of course, I don't want to waste anything, so I'm going to sew right over the line as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this square, and we're going to put it right up on the top right here. And I am going to sew here, and then I'm going to come over and sew a little bit. And you don't have to do that. That's just me not wanting to be wasteful. So we're going to go on the line. And then I'm going to come around and sew again, and then I'm going to cut right in between of those and put that in my save, because I'm going to make something amazing bag. Pretty sure we all of us quilters have one of those bags, or shelves, or bins, you know, as it goes. All right, so there's one side of our hat, and now we're going to add the other side, and we'll put it here, and you will notice if you're cut right, this should cross over, and that will allow you to keep your 1/4-inch seam and your point, which all gnomes love a pointy hat. There we go. And when I get sewing on this quilt, what I do is I do a whole bunch of hats, and then I'll do a whole bunch of, you know, I just kind of rote sew it, so I do a bunch of the same things at once. All right, these go in my baggie. My baggie can go down here. All right, so now we're going to make the body of the gnome, and what we're going to do is we're going to put his beard, and we're going to make the beard just like we made the heart. And so we've got these 2 outside pieces here. Our coat is going to be blue. And remember I told you that I pulled one whole piece out for my noses. So I use this striped piece right here. You have 25 gnomes, and you're going to put a little 1 1/4-inch square on both sides here for the nose. So here's the little tiny nose right here, 1 1/4-inch squares. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a 1 1/4-inch strip right here. Actually, it makes it so much easier if I cut off these little peaks, and then I can get a straight line, because these tiny squares, they're so tiny, you just want to. This is a brain thing, you guys, so if you have a 1/2 inch on your ruler, watch that, because it can mess you up. So I'm coming over here to the full 1-inch side. I'm going to put it at 1 1/4. I've trimmed off my little peaks so that it's much smoother cutting. And I'm just going to cut right like this. And I'm just going to cut some 1 1/4-inch squares here for my noses, and because it's such a tiny square, I just don't like to deal with those little tiny peaked edges. So I have a few right here. So then we have these little tiny noses, and these are going to go in the inside corner like this. And so what we're actually going to do is we're going to do the same thing we did on the heart, only this time we're doing it on colored squares, and we're going to put our noses in the middle. Because this is such a tiny space here in the middle, I did not try to line anything up and worry about it at all. You can see like this, you can see parts of little stripes, but it's just a little nose. Now, as I was making them, I did think it would be interesting, like if this block was longer or wider, you know, you could change the nose shape a little bit, you know, but that's me. I just always look at things and I see about 30 ways to do it. So anyway, we are going to stick with the pattern on this, 1 1/4-inch squares. We've got our outside print on this outside one, and our nose here in the middle, like this. And we're going corner to corner. And then we're going to take this one right here. This is our coat piece. This is the 3-inch square. I'm going to put it on the bottom of the heart right here, and I'm going to sew straight diagonally side to side. Now I have my diagonal seam tape, so I can do that. And you can do all this at once. Actually, you can do the same thing with the heart. I did it in pieces so that I could show you exactly, but you can do this whole thing like this while you're here at the sewing machine, and then make all your cuts at once. The one thing you have to remember is that, again, these 2 pieces have to go opposite. And so you want to make sure if you sew one, check the other, because I did have a few hearts that were both going this way. It just doesn't work. It doesn't make a heart shape. And so on this right here, we are going to come from the outside into the middle, and we're going to come across here and over here. So we'll pick up this whole little block, and then I will take them both to the ironing board. Here's our nose piece. Here's our, I guess I'll call this the shoulder. And then I'm going to go from the outside to the inside on this piece to make the bottom of the heart. And again, I'm just going to come back and sew that again. I just remembered that I didn't do it on the other one, so I'll do him really fast. Just like this. Now, interestingly enough, if you didn't sew those and you cut them apart, they're going to stay together for a little while. They kind of, even not sewn, you know, if you tossed them over here, those two pieces would stay together just because of their fabric and their, you know, I'm not actually sure why, but they do for a little bit. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and trim these off. And trim our heart piece here. And I'm going to save that there, and we're going to press these now. So press, just roll them up and press back. You can set your seams if you want. I kind of set my seams by rolling over the whole thing. And then this piece goes out, and this nose goes up. And then any little threads that you have that you didn't clip in between these two, clip these now so they can lay nice and flat. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to sew this together. So see how this beard makes his beard makes the heart. So we're going to sew this together, lay these right on top of each other, and then sew right down the side. I'm making sure that nose lines up pretty good. All my noses aren't perfect, but nobody's nose is, right? There we go. Now we're going to press this open. And then what I'm going to do is now we're going to add the arms to the sides like this. And again, on our arms, we have they have little hands, and those hands have to go opposite direction. So we come in on this side, and we come in on this side. So I'm just going to draw a little line right here. There we go. And then on this one, you can put a pin in there if you'd like. And then I'm just going to take this to the sewing machine like this, so right on that line. And then this one as well. Make sure it stays right lined up. All right, then we're going to trim these, and we will iron them open. This is a little small for me to save. I do have to admit I have my limits of what I'm willing to save. But I do know people who would pick those right up and keep them. All right, let me iron these back. And then again, the lowest part goes to the middle like this. And we're going to sew these two side pieces on right here. And then this one over here, and I'm making sure that I'm putting it on so that the fabric is to the fabric. Little mantras that we have. All right, now I will press that open. All right, so here, this is our gnome body. That's really all there is to it. We're going to attach it now to the hat. We're going to put this on here like this. And I am going to line this edge up right here and just sew it 1/4 inch across the side. And I'm watching to make sure that all my seams lay down the way I want them to. And then I'm going to press this hat up right here. Oh, it's so cute. You know I love this, right? All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to make 25 of these. You're going to make 25 of these. Then we're going to sew them together. We're just going to alternate them. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in the top row, 3 in the second row. And you just alternate your heart in between. There's no sashing, nothing. You're just going to sew straight rows. So the next row to the next row, just like this. So on her pattern, she has just bound this, just finished that and bound it. And a lot of people like that. I am a lover of borders. And so I actually added an inner border, a little 1.5-inch white inner border all the way around it, just to set it in a little bit. And then I added a nice big 6-inch border out here on the outside. And of course, I bound it with the tiny little stripe, which I think is beautiful. The backing on this is this beautiful red print that appears in the layer cake as well. It's gorgeous. And we quilted this with hearts, little hearts, because there's hearts all over it, and it's just a darling quilt. So once you get this nice big border on, ours is 69 by 72. If you finish it without the border, it is 56 by 59. So you get some choices there. Anyway, I loved this pattern, You Gnome I Love You by Hello Melly Designs, and we hope you enjoyed this tutorial from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you are not already part of the Missouri Star Quilt family, you can hit the subscribe button below so you won't miss a thing. And if you click that bell, it'll notify you every time a new tutorial comes out. See you next Friday.